here we are at Lit Arts RI, which is, I think, an appropriate place to be talking about the challenges of AI.
I absolutely agree.
Sort of a, and for those that don't know, Lit Arts RI is a hub primarily for writers, although in the last few years they've been trying to grow those relationships and and expand into other arts, related arts or adjacent arts. But
yeah, that's part of they did a big name change a couple of years ago, and it was specifically partially because the old name made it sound like only writers need apply, which was not their mission statement.
Yeah, and you are a member here, right?
Correct. I am a member of Lit Arts RI.
Yeah. So it's Taylor Hayes.
Tyler,
excuse me. Ooh,
you're fine.
Shame
Tyler
on me,
Hayes.
Tyler
you're
Hayes.
Fine. Don't worry about it.
And what's your history related to writing and?
Sure. So I am a published writer. I'm the author of one novel so far, The Imaginary Corpse. I have been writing most of my life. I have been published for roughly half of it in one form or another, depending on where you want to put the cutoff for professionally published. Mostly did short fiction. Imaginary Corpse was in 2019. I'm now in a tiny bit of a sophomore slump, but I've been actively writing the whole time, trying to get back on the publishing horse.
Right.
And it's been a career. It became a career out of passion, which came out of a curiosity.
Yeah. And now these days you're working for you're dealing with technical writing.
Correct.
As a how we pay our bills.
Indeed, I call it my pays the bills job.
Yes.
Yes. So I do copy editing for a company that specializes in text aimed at students in technical fields.
Right.
And of course, I should say, the opinions I present here are not necessarily the opinions of my employer.
Right. Well, we'll leave the name of the employer out of the mix anyway.
Indeed. But just making sure we have that little shield around us.
Yes.
So that is what I deal with in my day-to-day, and that is actually where I have had to deal with generative AI.
Right.
I have chosen not to use it in my personal life, in my writing career, or for personal use. But my work, like so many companies, wants to explore ways they could use it to scale their business. And so they've been looking around, having us test it, trying to find use cases for it within our process.
How's that going?
I would say meh. I will say for my part, all of the things that I have, I think I tapped the lav. All of the things I have tested have not really worked out great in terms of.
So what kinds of things have you tested?
So first the big one was we had me test, could we use it to help us flag certain types of errors that we commonly have to correct in editorial, that often happen in large bunches. And so it's very easy for you to miss as a human being. We can't automate all of the judgment calls that an editor needs to make. Is this appropriate passive versus active voice? Did we keep the terms consistent? Stuff like that. But we can potentially automate, they left 2 spaces after a period, here, and here. Or they didn't close the quote mark where our style guide says the quote mark should close. So we tested basically using it as very, very advanced find and replace function.
Okay.
Can you feed a document in, prompt it to check the document and say, here are all the pages or all the sections or whatever. Here are all the subdivisions of the document in which these errors occurred. And the answer was we couldn't get it to work.
So a purely generative AI
yes, it was
not able to do that.
Yeah, it was one of the big corporate AIs, one of the ones you hear name dropped a lot. And yeah, I was able to get it to tell me if I gave it a very small chunk of text that had none of the error in it that I was telling it to look for, and I was telling it to look for only one kind at the time. We were starting there. It could spit back, yes, this 2-paragraph chunk of text does not contain that error. If I put 1 in, it would return there is 1 of this error. The minute I gave it a longer document or one with more occurrences of the issue, it started doing what the industry calls hallucinating. It started saying that the error occurred on pages where I knew, because I was the one designing the test document, it did not occur.
Okay.
It also made up pages that didn't exist. I gave it a 50-page document and it said, oh yeah, there's one on page 71. And I pushed back on that, as that is what we're told to do in our testing, is like, try telling it it's wrong and see what it does. And my experience was what I think a lot of people have had, which is you tell it there is no page 71 or whatever, and it says, oh, I'm so sorry, I meant something else, and that something else may or may not also be a hallucination.
Right.
Whoop, phone's not silenced. Very unprofessional. There we go. So that was the first test, and we deemed that a failure. We just said, okay, if it can't even handle a tiny chunk of the size of document that we work all the time and handle one task that we already have a tool to deal with, which is just the find function. I could also just go in and say, find me everywhere that there are 2 spaces in a row. Find me everywhere we put the comma outside the quote mark or whatever. That would work, and it would do it much faster than all this time I was spending trying to get an AI to even do the most rudimentary part of that job. Slightly more successful was an attempt to use it to generate alt text for images. We had, for reasons that I do not fully understand, we had a large backlog of images that did not have alt text applied to them that were supposed to be in our live products, and we need to be ADA compliant at my job.
Alt text, just
sure. For context, images shown on the internet often have what is known as alt text, or images and documents of any kind now, digital documents of any kind, will have text attached to them as like a string of code describing what is in the image. And that serves 2 purposes. One, if the image won't load for some reason, most programs will instead show the text along with the icon that means this image didn't load. But also, if you were using a screen reader, modern screen readers are programmed to, when they see the image, read out the alt text. So a blind or visually impaired person using a screen reader can hear, oh, you're looking at, like from our documents, where you're looking at a Cartesian coordinate grid with the following points on it, or something like that. And that is required by the Americans with Disabilities Act. You cannot work with the federal government or any other group that is ADA compliant, ADA bound, without having that alt text. And we are like, well, we don't want to lose government contracts, because one of the technical student groups that we market to is Army Corps of Engineers.
Oh, that's important.
So we're like, we need a way to get through this backlog. It might actually make sense to use the AI to generate what, as we colloquially call it, slop. We can, and then massage that, versus making a person sit there and do bespoke alt text from 0 on everything. Like, this might actually be a case where generating a bunch of slop and making it look clean is better than starting from scratch.
Sort of like having a junior intern
Basically, yeah.
tackle the first pass.
Basically, yes. Except you didn't need to pay them, which of course is the big thing with AI. That's the big thing with companies with AI, I should say. So that sort of worked in that, yes, it generated alt text, and most of the time it seemed to actually be predicting correctly what it was seeing. There was not a whole lot of it, metaphorically speaking, being shown an apple and saying it was an orange.
Right.
But there was a lot of it omitting data. Like, it would get some of the data, but not all of it. So like, going back to my example of the Cartesian coordinate graph, if there were 4 points on the plot, it might give you 3 of them. And also occasionally it would also hallucinate data. It would occasionally say, extending the same metaphor, oh, there's also this 5th point on the plot that is definitely not there, and there's not even something there that would be an excuse for it to interpret it as being there. It's not like, oh, there's a little ink stain right there and it might think it's a point. It's just like, no, there's a blank space and it's claiming that there is a point and data there. So because of that, we had to start double checking everything it did. And this is the pitfall I have found with AI. In order to ensure it is of publishable quality, we had to double check everything it was saying, which meant anytime it saved, instead went into making sure it didn't say something wrong.
Right.
And so that meant, if you have it describing an image and you don't already know what it is, like it's a very highly technical circuit diagram or whatever. If you know circuit diagrams, you can just check it and go, yes, that's a resistor, yes, that's an inductor, etc. But if you don't know for sure how to draw a resistor or an inductor, you then need to go looking through engineering books to find how that is drawn and make sure, yes, it's right, that's an inductor. And all that time, in that time, it actually probably would have been faster, and I tested this, and it was faster once I understood the basics for me to just do the writing myself.
Right.
Like the corrections were taking as long as it took me to just start from scratch. So like I said, mixed results. Other departments are finding it more useful. And my theory of why that is that those are departments where the quality of the output isn't as much of an issue for getting their work done.
Okay.
I'm being coy about examples because I don't want, if one of them hears this, I don't want them to feel they've been pointed at.
No, but understood.
But there are certain, steps in the publishing process where it's okay if something has some errors in it. There are internal communications you can do with it where, maybe having it write your bad first draft is okay. And those people are finding it to be useful. But my finding is that any of that then comes to me makes my job harder. Right. Because I have to second guess everything that has come out of it. This problem for our practice exam was generated by AI, means like, okay, well, I have to doubt every single thing it has said. I cannot trust that an expert wrote this and probably knows what they are talking about.
Right.
For all I know, it doesn't, well, I know it doesn't understand anything because it's incapable of understanding. All it knows is this word is probabilistically likely to come next. So I have to verify everything. And there goes all the time that, like, yes, that department saved 10 minutes, but if I then spent those 10 minutes
then where have we ended up?
Exactly. And then in the meantime, you also think about the cost of course, we're paying the corporation that makes it for licenses to use it, because we can't, for obvious reasons, a publishing company doesn't want to put its work into the public version of their AI, where it will then be used to train it. So we had to pay for licenses for a private walled off one that's just at our company. And every once in a while, I and a fellow editor will pipe up with, how much are we paying a month for that? And how much does it cost to hire another person?
Right.
Like, really, where is the fulcrum of your savings? Because I know what you're paying me, and I know what you're paying me, and therefore I know how much money exactly is going into just cleaning up AI's mess.
Right.
So
you've had to interact with these generative AIs, this which is in the same general realm as chatbots. It's that LLM, large language model approach to tools that they call artificial intelligence, but probably don't qualify. They're artificial, but the I part, the intelligence, really is a huge stretch. One of the things that in my research that I came across, Alan Turing, the computer scientist from World War II, and dealing with the Enigma codes and whatnot, came up with what was known as his Turing test, where you interacted with either a machine or a person, in a way that you can't tell which is which, and if you can be convinced by the machine that you're talking to a human, you've solved a problem.
Right.
One person pointed out that test really only teaches us about human gullibility, has nothing or very little to do with actual intelligence.
Absolutely. And that actually brings me to a point that I've been thinking about a lot, which is that I think, first of all, let me underline what you said. I agree. Calling it intelligence is a marketing thing. I am firmly of the belief, I cannot prove this, but it is my deeply held belief that they chose to call it AI to lump it in with true efforts to make AI, meaning stuff like Deep Blue, the chess playing computer, and things like that. And I think that was a deliberate choice on the part of marketing, because it sounds a lot better than we made really, really good autocorrect, which is basically what they've done.
Well, except obviously, you've just given the example that it doesn't autocorrect very well if you give it a more complex problem to solve.
And the other thing I was going to say about that, I want to get to that point too, was that I think one of the things it also taught us is how much humans want to be talked to nicely and how well we react to flattery. Because one thing people have pointed out is that a lot of the big corporate models, your Geminis, your Chat GPTs, and so on, speak to you in a very, not speak, you like generate a voice that is very gentle, that is really it uses the language of taking ownership of its mistakes and of talking to you with respect and being very flattering to you. It will say things like, "Oh, that's a really good question!" ! Or like, "Oh, wow, what a profound insight you have given me," or something like that. And I am of the theory, which I have heard circulated other places, that is also deliberate, because that flatters the ego. And so it makes you, I am not a psychology specialist, so I don't want to try to get into that realm, but I think it helps make you want to see it as intelligent, because you're like, this is how I want to be spoken to by a person. And so it warms you to this, like I said, basically fancy autocorrect. And I think that is why you are seeing now all these weird stories about like people claiming they're dating an intelligence they have found in Chat GPT and stuff. It's tapping into like a profound disconnection and loneliness in some people who really just want someone to be nice to them.
Right. Yeah. And which can be hard to find.
Yes. So to your point about it not doing a very good job, in fact, science bears that out. Studies, such as they are right now, are showing that AI does not save time. AI costs time. I don't remember what tasks the study looked at. I will absolutely give you the link to share with folks later.
Right.
But the study analyzed, how did offices that adopted AI for various things do? And the finding was it took more time to do everything, because you had to feed it into the AI, then teach the AI, like refine your prompt to the AI to the point where it gave you something like what you wanted. And then you had to fix all its mistakes, like I was just describing with the alt text. Like all this time went into getting the alt text to generate in the first place. And it looks very smooth, but then you scratch the surface and you realize there are all these mistakes that you now need to fix, that it has said there's that fifth coordinate on the graph.
Yeah. And that's not, it's a bug, but it's extremely pervasive from all I've been able to come across. It's like those spurious additions are absolutely everywhere. I came across an example where an AI analyst asked one of the image generating systems to label the parts of a bicycle. It didn't label a single part accurately, and actually most of the descriptive terms that were used don't even suit a bicycle, and several of them are words that are not part of the English language.
Wow.
I'll show that to you after.
That's amazing.
It's a total disaster. I mean,
Yeah.
it presented a neat side view sketch of a typical, mountain bike style bicycle. And it put words and put pointers, but nothing added up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you call it a bug, and I don't disagree necessarily, but also some of what I'm hearing now is that, no, this is just what large language models are going to do. We are hitting the limit of this technology as it stands currently. And the only way to get it past those limits, again, not a technical person, not going to claim to be. My understanding is the only way to get it past those limits is to essentially merge large language models with other machine learning techniques. We are not going to get ChatGPT being given 1 million more sources of text is not going to refine it to the point where it understands that there are only 4 points on that graph. The only way you are going to do that is some other breakthrough that then gets welded to the large language model. I think I've reached the end of that point. But yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I think it's a limitation of the technology. It's going to occasionally, out of working entirely on probability, because that's all it does. It just looks at the data set it's been given and says, this word most likely comes close to this word, and then that word comes next, probably. And occasionally that's going to produce total garbage output that looks okay at a glance. And I don't know exactly how the image generators that use the same underlying technology work, but it is no surprise to me that they have a similar limitation.
Right.
I heard a story about that. There was a big Hollywood studio that tried this out and decided to try to use it for set painting, essentially, like creating digital backgrounds for their movies. So they fired all of their traditional set designers and just hired a bunch of guys who knew how to prompt an AI. And they kept the manager of the department. And the manager of the department said, okay, we can do this, but I am using the same iterative process we have always used. I am treating this as though they were handing me art they made themselves, because that is essentially how they want me to think of it, is no, this is art we made ourselves, but it was made more cheaply by someone we are paying less.
Right.
And he found two things. One is more of a human interest thing, and so I can get into it or not. The other, though, the germane part about the AI was, so he would get the output from, person A and tell them, okay, that's nice, but actually this scene is supposed to take place at mid-morning, so change the position of the sun. Or, it's actually supposed to be in this part of the United States, so that type of tree is not appropriate for where this takes place. All those AI prompters knew to do was try telling it, do the same thing over again, but with this feedback. Because, again, they are not themselves artists. They are not working on a piece of art. So they can't go back and move the sun. They can't go back and change the tree. All they can do is say, give me the same picture, but make it a poplar, not a cypress, or whatever. And the AI didn't really know what to do with that.
Right.
Like, it tried, but it usually, in addition to, maybe it fixed those things that were pointed out to it, but then it would introduce some other weird stuff. And it got to the point where the only person who was producing anything even usable by the end of just a normal cycle of critique and rework was the one person who knew how to use Photoshop, because they actually just broke down and started Photoshopping the
what
AI
was
output.
Generated.
Exactly. So they were doing some okay stuff, but they knew Photoshop for like business purposes, not artistic purposes. And one person, I think it was only one, near the end of this, actually was starting to see faces show up in this background that was supposed to just be like a woods and a meadow. And they were going, why on earth are there these faces? I'm not asking it for faces. I'm not asking it for people at all. I'm telling it I want an empty meadow and a forest. And the art director, knowing how these things are trained, went, probably someone put in a bunch of vacation photos.
Right.
And so the probability analysis says, oh, there's probably a face here.
Yeah.
So ultimately the company gave up. Ultimately the company went, we're firing all these guys. We're hiring back our art department because it was cheaper to do it the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing that I struggle with, having been in business myself and whatnot, is how companies can be in such a hurry to just make these broad brush, wholesale changes to the functioning of their business because some guy, some billionaire somewhere said this works.
Yeah.
Without ever testing. The lack of critical thinking in all of this just seems just astoundingly poor.
Yeah.
And whatever happened to thinking? I don't get it.
I don't get it either. But I mean, first of all, I come from a humanities background.
Right.
So like critical thought was basically, that's what my degree is in, is thinking really critically about books. Second of all, I have heard theorized, and I agree, this is about the kind of like quarterly profit driven model that a lot of modern business works on. A lot of businesses, like, and the bigger they are, the more likely this is true, run on, they need their quarterly earnings report to look good. And that is all their administrative layer is thinking about, or not administrative, their executive layer is thinking about, is this quarter needs to look better than the last quarter. And they don't really care how it's made to happen, because that's all they know is number go up. To paraphrase the guy from Folding Ideas talking about NFTs, he said all they know is line go up, like number bigger than last number, therefore I good business. But that results in things like, my favorite example is the wrestling company WWE is very well known for their quarterly layoff wave.
Oh, okay.
Where they will lay a bunch of wrestlers off who they're not really using. And like, that's normal, that an entertainment company will go, oh, I haven't used this performer in a really long time. I'm going to release them from their contract. But it always seems to happen right before their earnings call. So all that payroll disappears and they can say, oh yeah, look, we made all this extra money but where they made that extra money is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Right. Like somewhere down the line, you can't keep doing that. Or you get to the point where you are firing your stars in order to keep goosing that number.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with AI. It's this gold rush to not need to pay for a bunch of stuff that is very expensive and that it's very easy to dismiss. That's a side point I'll get into in a minute, as something a machine could do. And go, and now my quarterly earnings will look great because where I had 5 people on the payroll, I've now got 1 guy and an AI license.
No, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
In just, just in such the most ridiculously rudimentary way. I mean, the way you were just phrasing it is like, is like old caveman speak.
Yeah.
And it really, I guess that is the essence, isn't it? We have, despite all of the degrees and whatnot that MBAs and whatnot pursue, fundamentally, they are chasing the antelope. They are beating it over the head.
Yep.
And they are devouring it, and they are looking for the next one.
Yep.
And it's the Enlightenment has left us.
Yes.
The Enlightenment has left the building, so to speak.
Well,
hasn't it?
Yes. I also think it is, and this is the side point I was going to get to, related to the devaluing of the arts, because you will notice that the places where people are trying to cut corners with AI, nobody is trying to replace a CEO with an AI. Nobody is trying to replace, I was going to say computer programmer, but no, they are trying to replace computer programmers. But a lot of what they first pushed it for was it'll write your emails, it'll write your first draft of your novel, it'll generate art that you can use and in your marketing campaign or whatever. And they tried to market it into these areas that it's not very good at, but that it's very easy, I think, to get people to decide are disposable. Because at least in American society, there is a general idea that the arts are frivolous. Right. And therefore that comes to an idea that artists are overpaid. And therefore it's okay to hose artists, because clearly we're all a bunch of overpaid petite bourgeoisie anyway.
Right, which is true about 1/10 of 1% of artists, if that, and the vast majority are, like an awful lot of other blue collar folks, struggling to pay the rent.
Oh yeah, there were this was just coming up today. There was some discourse over on social media about somebody saying oh, but you, saying to an artist, but you have all these followers, how can you possibly be struggling? And the person is followers do not directly translate into dollars. Right. If I could guarantee every one of my followers gave me $1, once a year, right, I'd be okay. Yeah. But of those 50,000, probably 30,000 are bots. 10,000 are in an even worse place than I am financially. Right. Yeah. They're that has nothing to do with anything. But there is this idea, oh, you're an artist with a published work, you must be a millionaire. Which is so not the case. Right. Award-winning people you have heard of sometimes can't make rent.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true even among Oscar-winning directors and whatnot. They find themselves without work on the backside of it. Nobody wants to touch them, and because they think they're going to be too expensive, and so before you know it, they don't have anything. And on and on it goes. Yeah.
There's a story a writing friend of mine likes to tell. She is a full-time writer. Mary Robinette Kowal is her name. Mary Robinette Kowal won one of the big awards in science fiction and fantasy. I'm sorry in the moment forgetting if it was the Hugo or the Nebula. And she compared her sales numbers. She was able to look at the sales trends on her books. And she was like, I had more of a spike in my sales from a thread on Twitter that went viral about how astronauts pee than I saw from winning an award.
The award.
Yeah. So this whole idea that an award-winning author is automatically more successful, you are successful in terms of your peers and or the audience believe that you are worthy of accolade. And that is wonderful in and of itself, but it's not going to keep you from starving to death.
Right.
Like Billy Bob Thornton and his whole story about he ate nothing but potatoes for the first while he was in Hollywood because it was what he could afford.
Right.
And nobody had told him he needed other food, so he almost died of malnutrition while trying to get started.
Right. Yep. Yeah, one of the really essential areas is content.
Yes.
Where did these models come from? They consumed something so that they have this framework of language knowledge. Where did that all come from?
And that's, I think, honestly, my frontline sticking point, as in the number one thing that makes me go, no, I don't want this. Because the answer is some of it is stolen. Or I should be legally correct. They are accused of having stolen it. They definitely have not attributed, to use a term we used off camera, any of the work that they have taken. Because we know for a fact, they have admitted to this in court, that yes, they trained on public domain stuff initially. You know, they fed the dictionary into it and like books by people who've been dead for 3,000 years and stuff like that. But then, or alongside, they also grabbed things that were not up for grabs. Like I have heard anecdotes of people whose websites are set up, you know, with I don't know the technical terms, but they've got the code in them that says don't scrape this page.
Right.
Like keep this page off your search engines, don't scrape
Right.
it. Those pages, they have still, like on their back end architecture, seen bots coming in and trying to scrape those pages. So those big companies developing AIs have specifically made bots to ignore the kind of commonly understood instructions to not do that. We also know Meta, at minimum, I think Anthropic also did this, downloaded books from pirate websites and then fed those in. And
pirated meaning?
Pirate websites, meaning those are illegal copies. Somebody took a legit copy, either one that was already digital or then they digitized it, and they just uploaded it for free to a website. All kinds of stuff is piratable. Like the big famous one, of course, is the old Napster case from the 90s and aughts with music. But you can pirate movies, you can pirate books. Like if it can be a digital file, it can be released onto the internet without any controls over the creator getting any kind of compensation for
Now,
it.
do you have experience of your own work?
So I was actually named in the class action lawsuit that Meta, or I was not named, I was part of the class in the class action lawsuit against Meta. I'm forgetting now what the website was, but they took a database of pirated books off of a pirating website, like a website that specializes in being a clearinghouse for illegal copies of books.
Dark web kind of site.
Yeah. I don't know if it was literally the Pirate Bay, but it was something like that. And the Atlantic, of all places, got a hold of that data, like what was in that database. They were able to find that and then make it searchable. So there was a search engine, it might still be there. There was a search engine on their website where you could go in and you could type in an author name or a book title, and it will tell you, yes, that is in there. And I was in there. Another coworker of mine who he has moved on from the company, but he wrote nonfiction, was also in there. A couple of my friends in the fiction writing world were also in there. And the same thing happened with ChatGPT. There was at one point, someone got a hold of the data of what ChatGPT was trained on. Don't ask me how that works, but they got a hold of it. And same thing, someone made it searchable, made that data searchable. And a bunch of my friends went, like, let's check for each other. I can barely stand to check for myself. And they were like, I'm so sorry, Bob, you're in here. I'm so sorry, Susan, you've been pirated by this company. And so creative, like organizations of creative professionals have reached out to these companies to say, look, we're not saying we wouldn't have let you do it. I mean, a lot of us are saying we wouldn't have let you do it, but we are saying we deserve compensation for that. And basically their response has been, we cannot possibly be profitable. Or sorry, that is Sam Altman's response. Sam Altman said, if you make me obey IP law to get my training data, I will never turn a profit. That was his counter argument. And Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, just outright said, I might pay a couple of specific creators, but I don't think any one artist's individual contribution is important enough to warrant me giving them money. So I say all that to say, they know they took this stuff without compensating and without attributing, and they are basically saying, you should let us do it so that this project can continue. Because what they need in theory to perfect these models is more training data. It needs more data. It needs to get better at predicting what comes next in the sentence. And to do that, they long ago ran out of free stuff they could take, so they're now taking illegal free stuff. And that's kind of my ethical hard line is like,
Pardon me?
You're fine. I am myself an author, a creator of IP, and I came up through the University of California system for my education, which, like most college systems, has a like zero tolerance plagiarism policy.
Right.
If you are caught plagiarizing, you are expelled. So I was taught, and I think taught correctly, plagiarism is one of the worst things you can do. And so to essentially create what is, and this is not my invention as a term, a plagiarism machine.
Right.
And just say, well, you should just let us do it, is to me just like an ethical Rubicon. Like just, I can't imagine the thought process that leads you to think that's okay. And so that's where I generally start with people when they're like, why don't
it's
you
the same thought process that makes it okay
Yeah.
for a certain space company to waste billions of dollars launching rockets that aren't ready
Yeah.
and aren't even close to being able to meet the specification that was laid out many years ago at this point. There is, for whatever multitude of reasons, we live in an era where accountability has completely disappeared for anything. It's just everybody gets to run rampant if if they've got a big enough, if they've got a high enough ranking on the Forbes 400 or whatnot. That's enough. I get to be whatever I want to be, and to hell with everybody else.
Yep. And like we're only now starting to see that. I feel like there is a sea change on the way with that, because you are seeing Elon Musk pushed it too far somehow, and he is starting to get backlash that is actually affecting him to some degree. But it's going to take a long time to turn the boat on the idea that, oh, well, he's a billionaire, so therefore he must be smart and capable, and we should just let him do his thing because he's smart and capable and he'll figure it out.
Right.
Never mind that we have no actual evidence that he is capable. Like you're saying, SpaceX just like exploded on the launch pad during a test a couple weeks ago as of this recording.
Right.
So that's a whole can of worms I know we don't have time for in this
we
interview. But you are absolutely right. I think that part of it is just, but I'm rich, so you should let me do what I'm doing. Like, how dare you suggest that I suffer consequences for my actions? And like any consequences, the mildest consequences, people aren't even supposed to be allowed to be kind of annoyed with you about it.
Right.
Anyway, so like that's, yeah.
Now, on the flip side, what are your thoughts? Okay, well, we've got this bot. It's quote unquote working for us.
Yeah.
It's producing stuff. But does any of it have any real value?
I truly do not think it does. Or if it does, it is so overshadowed by the problems with it, both the ethical problems with it and the technical limitations of it. Like, I think that there are things it could maybe be good at, but I've heard this. I believe some of the very smart people I know who have the technical background to say there are tasks that machine learning is great at. There are tasks that a large language model could potentially do for us, but these companies have pushed them into the worst places for this kind of algorithm to work. We should. I think we would be better off focusing on things like the pattern recognition software for looking at X-rays, to where you're training it on X-rays to flag, hey, this X-ray looks like it might have a malignant tumor.
Right.
That kind of thing I think is a great place that we should be using research, but using it to write our emails when it can't even write a coherent email, that's a terrible use of it. So I'm personally of the opinion, if I could snap my fingers, what I would say is put all this stuff back in the research phase. It rolls out when you have solved the enormous power demand, when you aren't using unattributed IP,
Right.
And when you have figured out what it's actually good at and market it to those fields, instead of, oh, it can do everything as long as you let us steal and suck up all the power.
Well, from the research that I've done
Yeah.
so far,
Yeah.
the framework that's there
Yeah.
they've known, honest researchers
Yeah.
in this large language model realm
Yeah.
have known for a couple of decades that this is where this was headed and it wasn't going to get any better.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part, is we've got this huge multi-billion-dollar pile-in by, as the old phrase goes, stupid money.
Yeah.
And now everybody's trying to whip up enough of a frenzy so that the stupid money can get paid back. But fundamentally,
Yeah.
these tools are not on the road, cannot be on the road to, that magical GI, general intelligence, that everybody says that is their goal. They're not being honest if they say it's just one more round of training. It's very clear now that the next round of training has been going on, and it's not improving anywhere near as much as it has in previous rounds. And the hallucinations don't get any better. If anything, they get more convoluted.
Yeah.
And to some degree, you get this feedback loop of a version of self-preservation. Some of the research that I've stumbled across recently, where it's beginning, these tools have some very rudimentary sense that they have to preserve preserve their own model.
Yes.
And not be allowed to be erased. Exactly how that's coming out of the system, I'm not sure anybody quite understands. But nevertheless, these these things are not as controlled or understood, and that's a big part of it. Is a lot of this hallucination stuff, from what I understand, they can't trace it back. They don't really. Nobody really understands what what in the model broke.
Yeah. No, that's exactly, and that's why you can't just tell it, don't do that. Because, and I don't want to, everything you said is accurate. And I think it's not a complete black box. We understand how the underlying technology works, but you're absolutely right. It's so complicated and it's so obscured because of the way it's built up, that you can't go in and go, oh, it is because it gauged this probability wrong, or something like that. You can't narrow down, oh, it's this data from Reddit that we fed it, and it is now saying that the moon isn't real because it digested a whole bunch of conspiracy theory Reddits, or whatever. All they know is, oh no, it just started saying the moon isn't real. We don't know why. And I think, on the point of self-preservation, somebody tried, there was maybe it was something you looked at. There was a test where some data scientists sat down with an LLM, and it was pretty well trained, and they got it to understand that the person using it currently was evaluating it for whether or not we should scrap the model and start over.
Anything else?
No, I think I've ranted pretty effectively on the subject.
You think you've covered it all?
I think so.
Covered your version of it all?
Exactly. There are things that I would love to cover were I expert in them, but I am not the right person to talk about them.
Yeah. No, no, thank you. It's been a really good beginning. And
yeah, absolutely.
The point of it for me is to try, in my limited capacity, to get a few more people thinking critically.
Yes.
And understanding that these tools are, they're extremely poorly designed. They fail in many, many ways that doesn't show up in the sales literature.
Yeah.
But people need to understand, and they need to understand that, that if they're in a position of decision making or in a committee meeting or anything else, that they can speak up and say, hey, we need to research this more. We need to test this very thoroughly, or we're going to waste a lot of time and energy